Good morning, friends. Good morning, friends. Hello, hello. How are you this morning? A little mug up in the highly desirable, often imitated and never duplicated First Congregational Church mug. Hope you're doing great this morning and that this Thursday finds you warm. It is a balmy 46 degrees when I got up this morning, and I hope that that my little weather indicator is telling me temperatures are going to rise. I hope it's true. So wherever you are, I hope you're enjoying this fall and reality that we find ourselves in. Hey, Vicki, we had our first pastor's coffee today. Vicki stopped by. So great to visit with her. Hey, I want to visit with everybody, gang. Like, I love you all. I want to spend a little time. Let's spend, So if you're out and about on a Thursday morning, pop by. Usually there's a little nosh, there's a little coffee, a little tea. There's going to be hot chocolate. We'll have a little chat, catch up, get to visit with each other. We rarely get the chance. So if it works for you, I hope you can make it. Hey, Jamie Battles. Hope you're doing grand. I hope your desire to watch a spooky movie through the whole month of October, very terrifying to me. I don't like spooky movies. No, not my gag, not my jam. So anyway, enjoy. I hope it, as Chris Mang says, that'll make you sleep good. All right, Karen. Good morning to you. Hope you're doing well. Things are great for you. Good morning, everyone. Hey, Donna, good morning. Hope things are grand in the Pine Tree State. Good morning, everybody. Hello, hello. All right, let's get going this morning. It is the second day of October on this Thursday at 11:11, and I'm glad you're here and part of this journey. Let blessings and peace and grace upon you all. So there's this story. It's a very anticlimactic story, but I want to start with it today. It's a story by a guy by the name of Robert Thompson. Robert Thompson was an airline pilot, and he pulled in a convenience store, and he walked into the convenience store. And because he was thirsty, like people often are, and he went in, opened the door to the convenience store, took a couple steps in, and immediately was overcome with fear. Had this moment of terror inside of him, and in that moment, he turned around and he left. He didn't even he just was overcome with fear, got in his car and drove away. He didn't think anything of it. That's actually the end of the story. Except for the fact that at 6 o'clock that night, later that day, he was watching the news. And just a few moments after he had been in that store, a police officer was shot and killed in the midst of a robbery. That what Robert Thompson knew but didn't know was that there was actually a robbery taking place. And he didn't know that. There were no flashing lights. There was no gunplay. He simply was afraid when he walked through the door and turned around and turned on his heel and left. When he was interviewed later about this, he said, well, he thought about it, and he's like, well, normally when you go into a store, the guy kind of checks you out, just kind of sees who's coming into his store, so the counter clerk makes eye contact or just kind of scopes you out, makes sure sees who you are. So, and then, but the counter clerk didn't do that. He was staring actually at this other person, and this other person was dressed was kind of nondescript, but dressed in a big black overcoat. And then now that he thinks back on it, he realizes it was actually a hot day, and so it was kind of conspicuous that he was in a hot overcoat. But what he said to the interviewer, he says, I didn't realize any of this at the time. I just knew I was afraid. This I'm becoming really fond of my good mentor friend's statement that the world steals our best lines because we don't know we have them, and that this intuition that Robert Thompson encountered and that he listened to, which is really if there's a miracle in the whole thing, it is really that he listened. So often we are, I think, invited or trained or told, both out of simple politeness or simple silliness or simple we rationalize and we talk ourselves into that's just that we don't need to pay attention to that. We don't need to listen to that. We need to that all of this grand hardware and software we have been given within our hearts and our minds and in our very physical bodies, that is in fact what the Bible calls the Spirit of Truth, or the Holy Spirit. That the Spirit of Truth is upon us. And this is from John 16, verse 13. It says this: when the Spirit of truth comes, he will guide you into all truth. When the Spirit of truth comes, he will guide you into all truth. Now, we've often read that in the Gospel of John, and the Gospel of John is all full of all kinds of weird and wonderful, the Father and the Son language and all this sort of stuff, and the reception of the Holy Spirit, and we can be boggled about what this all means and how it works and what is. But I want to suggest to you that this indwelling of the Spirit of truth is actually something that is deep within us all, and that we all have access to. And that it's actually often constantly at work trying to guide us and tell us things. And that it is a part of our very biology in terms of how we are made, in terms of the hairs of the neck that stand up on it. It is a part of our heart network that we know when something isn't right. It's a part of our very being that something does in our minds, that when something just doesn't make sense. They said this, but they meant that, and it just doesn't make sense. That all of these are ways in which the Spirit of truth are trying to speak to us, and that the Spirit of truth will lead us to all truth. That it will preserve, like Robert Thompson, it will actually preserve our very life when we listen to it. That often I think all of the stuff in the Gospel of John gets shrouded in big theological thoughts about what the Holy Spirit is up to in terms of keeping this planet spinning, but it's actually speaking powerfully and quietly to us every moment of every second. And I think sometimes that we encounter this most truly when we kind of encounter deception, when we encounter people, perhaps people lying to us. The great Brene Brown talks a lot about this, but this basic and real idea of when we encounter betrayal, when we've been maybe misled, when the wool was pulled over our eyes, maybe we were deceived, or maybe we were manipulated, we were talked into something, we got the advanced warranty that we didn't want, maybe we were manipulated, we cried, we were lied to. At the end of it, when we really look at those moments, what we become, we may be hurt in our heart for somebody willfully deceiving us. We may be a broken trust in a relationship, and all that's true. But when we really think about what endures in those interactions within us, it's often our own frustration and our own disappointment with our own inability to listen to our own intuition, with our own Spirit of truth, to listen to the Spirit of truth that we had. I knew something wasn't right about that, but I just couldn't say it. And often we're trying to be polite, right? We're nice people. We're good. We're nice people. We just want to be nice. And that niceness will often get us in trouble. And it doesn't mean we have to go around being rude or we need to be difficult. But it does mean we need to listen to the Spirit of truth within us. And there are different complexes of where it dwells and how it dwells in us all. For some of us, it dwells, it speaks, the Spirit of truth speaks in our gut. It's like we know a thing and we can't say why we know it. For some of us, it's a logic thing. For some of us are mind people and we're just like, that doesn't make sense. We don't know why that makes sense. Or some of us are heart people. It's like, there's something off between us, and I don't know what the thing is, but there's something off that's going on here. But wherever we get the intelligence, wherever and however, because of the way that we're fearfully and wonderfully made, the Spirit of truth speaks to us. We need to be attentive and listen, because otherwise we end up in this way that we lose our own truth. We lose our own guidance. We lose our own access to all of the truth. And that it comes often in the midst of profound betrayals. And they don't even, this is the thing, they don't even have to be profound betrayals. They just have to be these places that we find ourselves no longer in the practice of truth. You see, we often think of it in true and false, right? Because this is the thing. We want to think of people this way. This is why we think of true and false, is because we want to think of people in terms of good people and bad people, right? That's how my categories work. I don't know about anybody else, but we got the good guys, we got the bad guys, we got the black hats, we got the white hats. We want to be able to divide the world up in this way. And what we have to remember is what Solzhenitsyn always said, is that the line of heaven and hell is drawn down to the center of the human heart. That we've all got a little goodness and badness on board, but that the trust of our intuition, if you want to call it that, the trust of the Spirit of truth, the trust of ourselves and of our own truth, whatever framework you want, whatever words you want to give to that, but that trust is a practice. That listening to it is a practice. And the thing is we often call this, our psychology friends often talk about this in terms of trusting yourself, trusting your own intuition. And I always bristle at that, because if I'm in the business of trusting myself, that's always gets me in trouble. But what I do understand is that if in fact the Spirit of truth is dwelling with me, that the Spirit of God is with humanity, as we have been promised, and that the Spirit of truth is dwelling in me, and that it's speaking to me in my gut, that it's telling me in my heart that what actually works and what actually does, that my mind is working to puzzle things out, even when I don't know, even when I can't name all the data like Robert Thompson. I can't say why the guy had the black coat, or the guy was staring in the wrong direction, even though I can't name any of those things in those moments. But his fear reaction was present, and it cost him, and think about that interaction, it cost him nothing to get in his car and drive to another place and get another drink. It cost him nothing to listen to it. And what did he gain? His whole life. He gained every breath and every heartbeat that he had after that moment. And I think that's what the Spirit of truth really is, and practicing truth, practicing the Spirit of truth in us. And acknowledging that, and what it means, and this is the thing that really hurts. It really hurts more than anything else. And I'll probably leave you with this, because you just got to leave where it hurt. You just got to leave in the pokey parts, right? Is that acknowledging truth is always that practicing truth, practicing aligning ourselves with the Spirit of truth, practicing listening to the Spirit of truth, is really the practice of acknowledging discomfort. It's really the practice of acknowledging discomfort. And that our desire to be polite, our desire to be right and to be correct, our desire not to put somebody else, not to endure somebody else's discomfort, maybe, when we say, that doesn't sound right. Not to, and because again we're, as the great Brene Brown says, we are wired for connection. We do, because we don't want to break connection, so we ignore our Spirit of truth. All of that means dwelling in our discomfort. It means dwelling in and listening to the intuition, the still small voice, and engaging truth as a practice of moving through our days. And that it often costs us so little to do so. Just the acknowledgement of what isn't sitting right in our gut, the acknowledgement of a tightness in our chest, the acknowledgement of kind of a gnawing thought in our mind that just kind of won't quite go away and we don't know why. The acknowledging of that. And rather than the, I'm fine, when really we're not. The, it's okay, when really it isn't. The dismissal of our own truth for the wider reality of being. Because when we gain that small truth, when we live into that small truth, when we are trusted with little, we gain the whole, all truth. We gain the whole world. And that's the promise of the gospel of Jesus Christ. I mean, that is the small resurrection in the largest way. That is the smallest crucifixion that we have to give up our own kind of self-image, give up our own ego, give up our own desire to be the good boy or the shiny boy or the polite boy or the nice boy, to give up the idea of being the good girl or the one who gets the pat on the head, and to simply trust the Spirit of truth, and to practice that trust in God's work with us, in God's speaking to us, and in God's love for us, and understanding that love is enough to sustain the truth, and that in it we might acknowledge our own discomfort, and in doing so gain the whole world. That we might acknowledge our own cross and through it gain the very resurrection. Friends, my hope for you is that you will trust your God. You'll listen to that little voice in you. You'll let the flutter of your heart, the fear that might rise up, and you listen to it. You listen to it not as neuroses, not as paranoia, but you'll listen to it as the Spirit of truth moving through you. An intuition that was placed into you before you were born, and that in it and through it and with it, all truth and all goodness and all beauty may be yours in this life. That's my hope for all of you. All right, friends, we have come to the end of another week. We'll pick it up next week. This Sunday we are apple picking at Young's farm in Little Compton. It's a great spot. It's amazing. We're going to leave right after worship. I hope you can make it and make it a part of your day. We have communion on Sunday, and we begin a sermon series on Habakkuk. Now, how fun is that? You just get to say Habakkuk for a bunch of times this month. It's going to be awesome. Peace and grace to you all, my friends, and we'll pick it up next week with another 11:11.